Awesome. Thank you, Charlotte. So starting off, this is my senior capstone proposal, and my name is Mikaela Briones, and the topic I'm going to be going over is Filipino representation in American media. So a little bit about me. My name is Mikaela Briones, or Mika. I'm a four-year student at UH West Oahu, and I graduated from YNI High School in 2020, and I'm a product of Sierra Productions. I am a creative media major with a concentration in general creative media. So here are the things I'll be going over today. First off, my plans for my senior capstone project. Then I'm going to go over my thesis statement, then my rationale of the research conducted, and address the significance of my proposed project with my research. So here's my thesis statement. Although Filipino American representation in American media has improved over the years, it is still not sufficiently representative. This lack of representation or inappropriate representation creates a misconception of Filipinos and their culture. The goal is to analyze the importance of why Filipino representation is important and how the current representation is harmful to not only young Filipino Americans, but to all the viewers, creating a negative image and adding to the stigma of stereotypes. So my rationale for the research conducted, when I was trying to think of an idea for my capstone, I was kind of at a loss at first, but then when I was watching Grey's Anatomy, which is a popular medical drama series in America, the idea kind of came to me because after the show has been running for almost 20 years now. I realized I've never seen a Filipino nurse in the series. Only up until recently in the 17th season, which premiered in 2020, did they finally have a Filipino nurse portrayed in the series. And I did want to mention that I love the series, so no hate to that. But when I saw this, I was kind of shocked because it hadn't actually occurred to me that there wasn't any representation for Filipinos in that show. Because in real life, you'll go to any hospital, you'd see many Filipinos working in the healthcare field, from nurses to nurse aides and so on and so forth. So I thought that was weird that they hadn't had any Filipino nurses up until recently. So when I decided that that was going to be sort of the topic I was going to go over, I started to explore existing Filipino representation in American media. So artists like Bruno Mars or Apple de App, these are artists that kind of made it big in American music, and up and coming artists and influencers like Bretman Rock. I sort of went over in my paper too. So, kind of going over the reason why this is an issue, the lack of representation is an issue because it can lead to negative effects to young Filipino Americans and those who are viewing misrepresentations of Filipinos. So, I want to bring awareness to this issue of the lack of representation. Being a Filipino myself who grew up in Hawaii, I didn't have a lot of people on the big screen that looked like me, and I wanted to address this issue through my capstone. So I want to do a senior project for my senior capstone. I believe that going in this direction for my capstone would be the most appropriate to fully dive into my research and reflect the issue properly. Going into the significance of the project, first up, representation is important. The lack of accurate Filipino representation in American media creates a harmful misconception of Filipino Americans to American viewers. The future implications of this would be adding to stereotypes and stigmas that make the viewers of these misrepresentations think that it may be okay to continue to make the same jokes. And on to the second point, young Filipino Americans may struggle to find role models or positive representation within their own community and mainstream media. The future implications of this can lead to a sense of disconnection and alienation from their cultural heritage, as well as the feeling of being unable to fully relate to their peers and not being able to see anyone who represents them can make them feel unimportant. Moving on to some data, here's some data to support that significance of the research. As you can see in the chart, from 1980 to 2010, the US Filipino population increased by threefold. And I believe it's safe to assume that it has only grown from there. Being a growing population in the US is the reason that having proper representation is important. My target audience ideally would be high school students and adults to raise awareness, but realistically, I'd like to reach the students of UH West Oahu and the campus community to raise awareness of the issue, especially since our campus is made up of a substantial population of Filipino students. So my proposed solution is to create an animated, informative, artistic video, ideally about 3 minutes or so long, a minimum of 3 minutes, that dives into the issues and ideals for Filipino representation in American media through the use of poetry and art to tell a story. So my process would include pre-production, which would be writing of a poem, which I want to use as a narration for the animated video, then sketching and visualizing the animation, and then creation of storyboards. Then the production would include creating the assets digitally and then animating those assets, then finalizing of the poem narration and animation. Then post-production would include sharing sharing the video with my target audience via social media or word of mouth. So my deliverable was infinity drawing inspired. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with it, but as it would be an illustration, and as you continue to zoom in, it reveals more details and a whole new illustration. So I have a few screenshots from an existing YouTube video. And as you can see, kind of as it kind of zooms in, it reveals more basically. And I do have a video example. I don't think it's, oh, there it is. I'm only gonna play like a few seconds of it just to give an idea, but if it'll load. So as you can see, it starts off with an illustration, and as it continues to zoom in, it reveals more and more. And that's kind of the idea I want to do with a narration over it. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you guys so much for listening.